Welcome to Rapid Harmony. I'm Emanuel Brown. This is a space for high-achieving souls who want more than outcomes. You want resonance, you want truth, you want a life that moves with purpose instead of pressure. Here, we explore success with the soul and direction with depth. We slow things down just enough to hear your own wisdom again. We breathe, we question, we remember the part of you that never needed permission to leave. Every conversation is an invitation to trust yourself more than the noise around you, and live from that clarity that rises when you stop forcing and start listening. Take a breath, settle in, let's begin. So, if thoughts affect your biology, what happens when consciousness interacts with intelligent, energetic structures designed to amplify evolution itself?
I would say the first thing that happens is that your thoughts change. The way you think has to change because you are realizing you are not just having a two-way conversation with your body, your biology, but there is actually something in between that interacts with this field. So it becomes like a triangulation. And triangulations are normally more interesting than just 2 points because there is, by default, more energy.
So, today's guest, for those of you listening at home, is Esperide Ananas Ametista.
Ametista.
Okay. I've known you for a long time, but I've never had to say your full name. An international facilitator, psycho-sociologist, spiritual guide, and one of the leading voices in the field of Selfica, the spiritual technology. You can see right here, one of them around my neck that I wear every day, developed within the legendary spiritual community of Damanhur, which is the home of the extraordinary temples of humankind. So for more than 20 years, Esperide has worked with advanced energetic activation systems, consciousness exploration, sacred geometry, time exploration, and transformational practices focused on awakening human potential and multidimensional awareness. Yes, this is not one of your boring nutrition lectures. This is going to get multidimensional and amazing. So the Selfica, one of the central fields of her work, it's an energetic and spiritual technology based on the interaction between consciousness, intelligent energies, sacred geometry, metal color spirals, and specific structures designed to concentrate and direct subtle forces. And one of the things I'm especially excited to explore today is how Selfica within the temples of humankind is used not only for energetic harmonization and consciousness expansion, but also an amplifier for human potential, energetic coherence, and what Damanhur describe as the empowerment of the lines of destiny. Very fitting for my Empowered Leader program and Empower Process. Now, Esperide is also the author of several books on spiritual philosophy and consciousness studies, including 33 Lives from the Book of Time, dedicated to past life research and the continuity of consciousness across time. So today what we're going to do is we're going to dive deep into Selfica energetic coherence, destiny lines, timelines, conscious technology, and how all of this connects to leadership, nervous system regulation, intuition, and what I'm known for, total self-trust. Well, really excited to have you here virtually. Why don't we start first with where you're tuning in for?
Thank you.
You're out
I'm
in
tuning in from
Damanhur.
Yes, I'm in Damanhur, so this is where my community is located, and we are in a small valley in northern Italy, not too far from Switzerland, not too far from France. We're just at the border between Italy and those other nations in this beautiful area of national parks of the Alps.
And even though if you were looking from a helicopter, you'd say, wow, this is really beautiful, the secret is the most beautiful things are actually underground.
Yes,
You want
so
to explain a little bit of the temples of humankind?
So the temples of humankind, they probably are the reason why we're most known around the world, are a work of art. There are many, many different halls dedicated to universal spirituality. And we built them by hand in secret in the beginning, for 16 years in secret, and then through a very complex system and legal solutions, we found a solution to make them legal. And they were not in the beginning because Italy did not contemplate such a possibility. So when we tried to go ask permission to build inside a huge mountain by hand, it was like not possible. So we thought, okay, let's do
And
them, and
by
then we tried the
hand.
solution.
So
So
if you're listening at home, make sure you do look up Damanhur and start looking at the temples of humankind. These things look like they had the most advanced machinery ever to build them. And then you find out that they're inside of a mountain and built by hand. How were they built by hand?
yeah, it was completely crazy. I was not there in those years. I arrived just at the end of the secret phase. I was actually asked by the community to help bring the news of these temples to the public, finding a way that could be accepted, because this was 1992. So actually been 30 years doing the things that you were
Wow.
describing. Actually, a little more than 30
Wow.
years. Yeah, it's a long, long time. And so they basically, the Damanhurians in those years did not believe it was impossible. So when you don't have in your mind an idea that something is impossible, you can do it. And I think this is very much in alignment with what you are discussing in your podcast. It's
Absolutely.
recalibration of the nervous system to the impossible simply because you don't think it's impossible.
Well, you've also even calibrated in the whole financial infrastructure with your own currency.
But this was unfortunately years ago. We had to stop this because, again, regulation and laws becomes always more complicated and more restrictive. We are not
Okay.
really living in times of freedom, I would have to say.
Absolutely.
But what you're saying is correct, because for many years we were able to use a complementary monetary system, so a currency that was actually created within Damanhur. So when you came to our community in those years, you would exchange dollars, euros, whatever you had, into this currency called the credito, basically credit. We call it that way to remind ourselves that that's what it is, that real value should be based on trust. I give you credit. I trust you. And so
Oh,
for
that's amazing.
yeah, and that was the reason. And so for many years, we were basically able to multiply our money because the fiat currencies could be used to buy things outside of the community. But inside the community, we kept multiplying our wealth by exchanging more and more and more and more and more times the creditors. And then, as I said, many things ended up because also the regulations changed. While in the beginning, Damanhur was hidden. And so even the idea of building temples inside a mountain for 16 years in secret without permit was something. Now we are very well known. We have people from all over the world. We're constantly under the public eye. And so doing things that are not legal, it just doesn't work anymore.
But amazing, and the stuff that you do there is so incredibly magical in the most profound way, where coming there close-minded, I would say, as long as you're open enough to just have sheer curiosity, do you think that's like the basic tenet to walk in the doors, like an open heart and an open mind?
Yes, and also the desire to be surprised not by us, but by the greatness of the human heart. Because one of the main reasons why I think Daman is so exceptional is that we are so practical. So yes, we talk about spirituality. We build temples, and these temples are used as a laboratory for transformation. We use them regularly for our processes of activations of the energy body, and not only they're not a place of devotion. So they're temples in the ancient meaning, where you are able to establish a relationship with forces at different levels, from the human forces to the divine forces, but for a purpose. Not just because you go there and you pray without knowing why you're praying. It's a whole ecosystem of rebuilding a relationship with the divine inside of us, first of all, because we built them and call them the temples of humankind, because we believe that at the moment, in our current state of evolution, we have to remember who we are. So the
Yes.
foundational myth that we have is not that we are going from where we are to a future only, but we're going to a future because there was something that we lost in the way we are now. And we have to, first of all, recuperate that memory. And this is also one of the reasons why I and others in Damanhur are so focused in looking at past lives, because we don't consider them as past, but as other moments in which we are active in the fabric of time. And in order for humans to
I love
recuperate
that.
this, the fullness of who we are, we need to be aware of this. That first of all, a human being is a time being. So when we
Mm.
talk about Selfica, it's interesting to know that one of the ingredients to make actually Selfica, to create a Selfic item, is time.
Mm.
Time is an alchemical element that enters into the construction of Selfica itself.
I want to expand on that, but back up one step and start first with just for those who are just hearing the word Selfica for the first time. Maybe some of them have seen photos that I've used that have had this thing in all the time. Say that's some pretty interesting jewelry. What the heck does it do, or what is it?
I have some here. There's also some Selfic
Oh wow,
jewelry.
that's
Here,
beautiful.
yeah, a little shiny.
So, what is Selfica really?
So Selfica is something that is now in this epoch characteristic of Damanhur because it was is knowledge that was forgotten and has been taken again here. It was part of the memories of the founder of Damanhur. This is a man who lived here for many years with us, and then he left his body and completed his mission in 2013. And his vision was to come here to help humanity awaken in the fast possible way, because these are very special times. And this time, this window in which time is flexible and malleable, is special and is not going to last forever. So the vision was, let's do things now because this is the time. So Selfica was brought in as an energetic technology to work as a sort of spiritual prosthetics for things that we as humans already can do, but we forgot we can.
So, there are things we carry within us.
Exactly, within us and in the relationship with one another. Because when we speak of Selfica, in my experience, is more than anything an access to a field that is coherent, a field that is intelligent, and a field that gets strengthened if there are more people using Selfica and if there are more Selfica connected to each other. So now we have very complex Selfic structures all over the world. It took many years. In the beginning, we were bringing them, and now we have more and more people that come to Damanhur and buy also the more expensive ones because they see how much they work, what a positive impact they have on a field that could be a working space or a family or someone that wants to be super creative. Or we have started to have collaborations with the people that are very advanced in their field for healing, for instance, or water, research with water intelligence or different healing modalities. And they ask us to create specific Selfic circuitry for their product.
Well, we are primarily water as humans, and so I've tried to explain to people this Selfica is working on the human here, and also in conjunction with this art crystal, kind of like the Care Bear stare. It's beaming out that love to everybody.
Yes, and this is like one of the most recent Selfica products that we have created, which is a specific circuitry, not only to energize water, but to actually inform it. So it is
Wow.
lots of tests run on the difference between, just energizing water, which is great to do, very important. But this one has like a special information field that is even more coherent.
So Selfica sounds like a spiritual technology. Why does Damanhur use the word technology instead of simply spirituality? What's the technology piece? Like, how can we best describe the technology part of that?
Well, it's a technology because it's actually made of things, it's made of things. Selfica requires metal or alchemical liquids. It's every piece is handmade, except for when, of course, not the circuitries, but every piece that you wear, even the one around your neck, the selfie part, is handmade. So it's a technology because it's a technique and it's based on very specific forms and proportions. So you can't wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, I'm creating a Selfica." It has manuals of instructions how you to do it, and even in Damanhur, there are very few people that can make them. So it's not
Well,
something that, I cannot make them. It requires
oh,
training.
okay.
It requires the ability to move your hands, and they're super super complex. And if people go on the website, they can see how complex
Yeah.
they.
Mine, I had my birthstones put on them, citrine and topaz, being an 11 November 1st baby.
Oh.
And yeah, it's definitely incredibly potent. And I'm curious from your experience, when you first encountered Selfica at Damanhur, what happened internally when you realized something is really happening here? There's something happening from using this, being around it, wearing it. What was your experience?
My first experience when I came to Damanhur for the first time was actually looking at something that I felt I recognized. It was kind of a strange feeling because I didn't recognize it. I mean, I didn't know what it was, but the feeling of this thing was like very familiar. And so I am convinced that somewhere in my life I have already encountered it. Probably not just me, also you, because if we go more into the myth or mythological history of Selfica, we are convinced that this was one of the main technologies of Atlantis. And so it is
Yes.
one of those things that come from our ancient past, from the glorious times of Atlantis, not the times of the ending, to help us today not only remember individually, but even more importantly, in the field that is creating, remember collectively. Because I just finished a new book. It's on Atlantis. So I like to
Wow.
talk a bit about Atlantis on this, because one of the
Yeah.
reasons why we don't remember Atlantis collectively, or collectively we don't accept that Atlantis exists, or we cannot find remains of Atlantis or big things. They say, "Oh, that was Atlantis," is because at the moment there is like a vibrational difference between the timeline on which we are and the one on which Atlantis is. So yes, it is our past, but somehow it is not. It is as if that parts of the
Mm.
fabric of time had been torn, from where we are now. So Selfica, because it comes from there and it creates a field, is also helping us literally stitch that piece of fabric of time with the time where we're now. And why is this relevant? Because if we don't know our past, it's very difficult that we can build a trajectory to the future with awareness, because we are like an island of adolescents. And if you look at how we're treating our planet and humanity, sometimes we are not even an island of adolescents, we're an island of barbarians.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating with the Atlantis reference. I think I've never heard somebody explain it that way before, where you're saying it's on a different vibrational plane. So we're not really tuned into that timeline and frequency. But I have had experiences within the shamanic path of when I am tuned into a different frequency, that I've been able to see things in plain sight that others can't, or I would not have been able to if I wasn't in that frequency. And usually, when I am in that extremely non dualistic, calm, blissful love, love and bliss, those higher frequencies, when I've seen those things that others can't in those moments, I don't have the same response I would have if my nervous system was wrecked. So, for example, when the spirit orb, basically the soul of my dog who had just passed about a week earlier, floated into a tent that I was doing a little mini vision quest, and I was totally at peace. I had my blindfold on. I took the blindfold off, and about a few moments later, I watched it float in. I could clearly tell and sense this was my husky that had passed, and interacted with it, and then it floated away. Now, if I was in the nervous system that I was in this morning, getting my kids ready for school, one, I wouldn't have seen it. And two, if I did, I probably would have been freaking out, trying to find my camera, going a little nuts. And it's like I see certain things in a higher vibrational state. And to me, I think the science comes in those moments where we can just look at all of our different senses and the spectrum and the micro spectrum that we can see, feel, and sense within the visual, auditory, olfactory, all of our other senses. We only see and smell and hear a micro amount of what's actually going on around us. And then so with the Selfica and the fact that on a quantum level there is no time and space, you're saying this could all be happening in the now, and we're just not tuned into the frequency of Atlantis right now. Is that a bit of what's going on with the stitching and the connection to the timeline?
Partially, but it's also really the idea that time is a dimension that is composed of, we can imagine as different layers. And each one of
Okay.
these layers has a specific frequency. As humanity, when we're talking about the history of humanity,
The
it's not enough
collective.
that I remember, you remember, because there are people, of course, that remember Atlantis. And actually, as we awaken more, the block that was caused by the traumatic ending of Atlantis is lifting. And as it lifts,
Mm.
we can go back and remember. But it's not enough that we are a few people. We need to create enough traction, enough energy in a way that that timeline starts to become on the same level of ours, vibrationally, collectively.
I love the collective focus here, and I think a bridge for those that this may be pushed a little beyond their paradigm right now is the understanding of individual trauma blocking things out. Right? When people say, "Oh my God, I had no idea I was abused as a child," or "I have no recollection that I got in this fight and I got so angry, I don't know what happened that I ended up hitting and punching and kicking you," that the mind will selectively filter and block that out. So then magnifying that to a collective level, you're saying the collective consciousness is basically due to the trauma of the ending of Atlantis, completely forgotten about it.
Yes. And if you want to go more also into sci-fi,
Yeah.
that's big part of it. And is also connected to the idea that, not every force that exists on our planet is in the direction of evolution. So there's also
Yeah.
some pulling towards us never remembering who we really are, because then things stay as they are. But I don't want to go too much into sci-fi,
The
or
duality.
it might sound crazy, but I just want to offer this also as another point of reflection.
So
How complex. Sorry.
with the Selfica, I want to talk a little bit about the geometry and the sacred geometry involved with it, of the spirals and the metals and the color. How do all of those things play into the system?
So the spiral is the basic shape of our universe. And so the basic shape of a Selfica is a spiral. The first ones were very simple spirals, and their function is basically that of allowing this intelligent energy that belongs to the selfic field to flow in a specific way that can interact with the human. So the very complex ones have up to, hundreds of pieces put together, because the way in which these energies need to flow is so complex, like in a human body. There are some that are more simple because their function is simpler, and it's easier for them to interface with the human being without having to modulate the energy so much. So the width of the copper coil that is used, or gold sometimes, or silver sometimes, and how many coils there are, how they're put into one another, has the function of creating a specific flow of this energy, so a specific key to connect to the selfic field. I always like to think of Selfic as keys that open a door to a function that comes from a field.
So you're saying the sulfic field. Can you expand on what the sulfic field is relatively?
Yeah, so imagine that is a field of intelligence and energy that is actually allied to this moment of evolution for humanity. So it's, there are many fields out there. There are electric fields, electromagnetic fields, all sorts of fields. Selfica is another one. It's just that we, in our current state of life, where we are, we forgot that it exists. But if you look at all the ancient civilizations, you will find things that look like Selfica. everywhere. The Celts had spirals. The ancient Minoan traditions had spirals. If you look at the peoples of the steppe of Russia, they all had things that look like the Selfica of today. Of course, the Mesoamerican civilizations. You go to a museum in Mexico, you see Selfica everywhere. You go to Asia, you see it in Bali. You see in the architecture even how they use, spirals and combination of. So this is a knowledge that was known to humanity. It's just that we forgot.
So you and I had a pretty amazing experience with one of the large Selficas,
Yes.
uh,
In Egypt.
11/11/21 in Egypt, when we were out there dealing with the consciousness of humanity, helping raise that level. And um, I had one of the most profound, wild, non-psychedelic experiences ever doing the Selfica group meditation. It was one of the first times ever that I was able to clearly see and experience and connect to things through my third eye under no substance at all, but under the Selfica meditation experience. And one of the things I saw was tapping into this tongue out, funny, psychedelic, like joyful, explorative, creative face of Albert Einstein, which was really interesting within the moment and the symbolism behind it. It was very much one of the first times getting connection to symbolisms of that intersection of ancient wisdom and modern technology, and also the ancient technology that's all fusing back in. And I think that was a big part of that symbolism of that this is tech that has always been here, always around us, and we're now getting to tap in and utilize and connect with this tech. So, um, how could you maybe explain a little bit of what like a Selfica experience or Selfica meditation is like for those who've not maybe are just getting introduced to the technology, but also can now find out that there's large Selficas that have incredible technological capacity?
Yeah, in Damanhur we have very large Selfica composed of dozens and dozens of the Selfica-like structure that we use for the meditation in Egypt, that we use for rejuvenation. So again, working with time, the ability to realign the biological clock of the organs, because one of the main reasons why we age is because our organs do not all have the same age. You can be very young, but your liver could be very old, or,
Right.
and that
The
constantly.
biological age totally different than the
Exactly. So Selfica can work with that and realign. And so we have these processes, treatments that we offer people that are interested in trying Selfica to realign their body, to rejuvenate, because basically what the body can do, Selfica can induce. So it's interesting because you were
Mm,
saying I had a psychedelic experience without psychedelics, because those substances that the psychedelics give us or create within us are in our brain. So if they're already in us, Selfica, if you're ready, if you are prepared, if that's in alignment with you and that's what you want, can do that, can create exactly the same alchemy of substances within your brain without needing to take you from outside. Sometimes happens to people that have no experience with meditation. They go, wow. And very often happens with people that have experience already because their brain knows what to do when you get into that state. So and the brain says, okay, then I can take you there. And so what happens during this meditation, the one we tried together again, it's a group process because we are very focused again and obsessed with the idea of the collective, that awakening is collective in this time. So everything is more powerful if you do it together. And actually for most of the selfic activation processes that we offer here, we need a group of at least 8 people. Because less than 8 humans, Selfica don't even see us. There's not enough diversity. There's not enough nuances of energies. So to access certain levels, profound levels, you need the communion of at least 8 different humans. So
wow.
within the, it's very interesting. So within that context of a human tapestry, then the Selfica can enter and use the collective energy and intention to take each person where they are ready or where they want to go. And again, the mechanism is that what you described. Selfica can stimulate the production of substances, hormones in your brain and in your body that you need for very profound meditations, mystical openings, just through your breathing and the field that it creates.
Oh, amazing. So we've touched on this idea of alchemy,
Yes.
and I know at Damanhur you also have an alchemy school.
Hmm.
For somebody who has maybe not read The Alchemist or really learned anything about alchemy, maybe as far as just an understanding of its involvement of changing things into gold, might be as far as they could possibly know about alchemy. How would you describe alchemy to somebody new to it?
So, alchemy, again, I would have to say, is the science of time. So it's always a science of transformation. So even this idea that you take something, you turn it into gold, what is underlying in the metaphor is the idea that you transform something that has no value or little value into something super valuable. And what it is that you want to transform yourself. So for the alchemists, when they were talking about the transformation into gold, was always talking about the transformation of themselves into gold. And they were
Mm,
describing the different phases, right? The work to black. That's how it was called, or the work to red, was indicating first the dissolution of the ego. Then black, you destroy everything. Then red, when you start to have the life force and a new configuration. And then you have gold. But they were not talking about substances outside themselves. And even when the ancient alchemists were using substances outside themselves, was because they worked as a resonance mirror for what was happening inside. So when we talk about alchemy, we can think of many different ways of alchemy. The main purpose of alchemy is to transform ourselves into gold. So you can do it with inner alchemy or with outer alchemy to have an effect on forms in order to have an effect inside of you. So you can have alchemy that teaches you to talk to the elements, air, water, fire, and with specific rituals. You can have the basic alchemy to learn to balance your masculine and your feminine, because again, this for us is a key thing of the awakening of these times, that every human being, no matter if you are a woman or a man, inside you have both sides. And in this sacred union that we can find the energy to restructure the nervous system, our ideas, our health, everything, because that's where we find balance, is the yin yang brought to life within each one of us. And then there can
mm,
also be another inner alchemy, which is the field that I teach through Selfica, where you start to work with the different energy systems of your body, what normally is called chakras, the energy points along your spine and also outside of you, to really tune them, make them work better in harmony with one another so that your full potential as a human being can express itself. And after that is done, you start having access to what we call the senses of the soul. And you were talking about this before. You were saying
mhm.
that external senses limit us. But when we're fully aligned, when we have combined the masculine and the feminine, which again, we can explain all of this in medical terms with nervous system, substances,
Right.
it's not in contradiction. They're just different languages for the same thing.
Exactly. That's such a good point.
When we reach that state, then we can start saying, okay, I'm not just using my senses that limit what I perceive, but I can start to project outside of myself what I have inside. And then you can start also talking about, very fashionable now, manifesting. But if we were all able to manifest our most base nature, that would not be very good. So manifestation should be for those that done the inner work first. And what they
Right.
want to manifest is aligned with their higher purpose in life, which is never just personal. It's always
Yep.
collective.
I love
So that's
that. And to
alchemy for
me,
me.
that is so in alignment with the way in which I've seen the world, and even through a like you said, it's different languages for the same awareness of ideas. Like from a more poetic standpoint is, I like to say, in order to get what you want, you must first love yourself as you are. And then in a practical standpoint, people get so upset over the people who yell and scream at them on social media. And I say, stop for a second and just imagine how much the people who are yelling all day long at people they don't even know over social media must not love themselves, must not feel part of connection and community, that they're like, I'm going to spend my day screaming and yelling at strangers all day long on the internet as my drug of choice to mask my own awareness and working on myself. And then you can move into that level of empathy. And on a spiritual journey, part of that spiritual journey from me consciousness then moves into we consciousness and really thinking in terms of the collective. Part of the beginning phases that I see is this awareness of somebody saying, my goodness, I'm the creator of my own reality. I'm the creator of the whole universe. And I say, great. And then often they'll get into this point of like, and I'm a lion and everybody else is a sheep. And I say, you're talking trash about yourself right now, because literally you are actually every reflection you are looking at right now. So if you have anger and hatred towards everybody within your awareness and you think you're better than them, you're now in a sense of spiritual egoism. And if you're egotistically spiritual, then it's just a little bit farther walking down that path and to realize, how do we actually take we are all one and bring that heaven experience to earth? And it seems like Selfica really helps with that energetic connection and coherence, most importantly. And so my question for you is that in my work, I often talk about energy going into clarity, then going into execution. And how do you feel that energetic coherence affects clarity and decision making for like a high achieving conscious entrepreneur?
Well, it's very difficult to achieve anything or achieve anything with ease and joy if we have different voices within us and we can make a decision that is a unified decision within us. And this, I would say, is the norm with people. Is the norm because our society teaches us that we're just one or wants us to be one with one definition, while actually it's normal to have different voices within us. So we have a whole sector of Selfica dedicated to helping people hear these voices and harmonizing them, understanding that these are the norm, and the greatness and the strength comes when you can unify all that you are. And again, this could be translated into when all the different organs of your body that have different personalities, like Chinese medicine tells us, are just one voice, then you can be in health, feeling good. Otherwise, your health is off. And if your health is off, also your mind is a little off and you can't really be in coherence and make good choices. So I would say that is fundamental, is one of the basic levels of Selfica. And we have this for when we're awake. So, braces you wear that help harmonize the different parts. But we also have some Selfica for dreaming that also have this function, helping us harmonize when we sleep, when we dream. Because really the level of manifestation, the most powerful level of manifestation that we have is when we're dreaming. And it's so sad that so many leaders today cannot sleep well. It's
Yes.
so, and because that is kind of sabotaging our own power. Because it all happens there, then it happens here.
So let's dive into that just for a moment. So with sleep, there's all different lenses to look at sleep, from a physiological, vitality perspective. There's a lot of things with regards to your health and your lifestyle and the sunlight and the food you're eating and how dark the room is. And basically, are you working in alignment with the way nature set it up before modern technology messed it all up? What it sounds like you're alluding to is also the energetic body beyond the physical body. And how does Selfica work with and help with sleep for those who are maybe like, hey, I'm eating really well, I'm working out, I'm getting that morning sunlight, I'm getting my hormones checked, and something's going on with me, and my sleep is just crap. My mind is racing, and energetically things are off, and I'm having weird vivid dreams, and I'm just not getting the sleep quality that I need.
So for us, sleep quality is very intimately connected to dream quality, and not
Mm,
necessarily dreams that you always remember, but the sensation that you have when you wake up. Because there've been some experiments, scientific experiments, that prove that the reason why depriving people of sleep is the worst form of is not because they cannot rest physically, is because they cannot dream. because dreaming is like where we test our reality, is really the first level of the reality for a human being. And interesting enough, in our tradition, like many other spiritual traditions, we think that everything on this planet dreams. So it's one of the characteristics of planet Earth. But if we cannot dream, we cannot think. This is how important dreaming is. First, we elaborate things. We take in ideas, processes while we're sleeping, during the dream phase, and then when we are awake, even though we don't have this impression. So Selfica, for dreaming, we have specific Selfica to help people actually dream. So one for insomnia, and the other one is to recuperate easier if you sleep a little bit of time. But we also have a Selfica for dreaming that helps people retune their brain to go into that deep state of dreaming and make sense of their dreams. Even if, I repeat, if you don't remember, it doesn't matter. That can come with training, and it's important. But the most important thing is that it's impossible that a night of dreams doesn't leave an impression. So that impression with which you wake up in the morning comes from your dreams. If you are coherent, it's your dream. If your body is not coherent, so again, we go back into, a more body-centered idea or nervous system-centered idea, maybe the impression you have that is not pleasant, it was a dream of your liver. Because in the human body, even organs dream, meaning that their energy, when it's out of alignment, can influence what you dream.
So
And this
I love this awareness of everything having consciousness, meaning not just the whole, but the subsects of those different things. And also not just the things like the human having all the consciousness. There are a lot of people who don't even think of animals having consciousness, let alone buildings and rocks and other things. The ancient wisdom is that it all has consciousness.
Yeah.
From the humans to the rocks to the plants, etc. And you've described the temples of humankind almost like it's this living, energetic organism. And what is actually happening in these temples energetically?
Wonderful questions. So they were built specifically to be an antenna. So we know that, you mentioned the sun. It's important to be in the sun, not just because of the physical body. Again, we can look at everything. It's always the same. It's a fractal system, from the spiritual to the physical, from the universe to the human. It's always fractal systems. So if we say, okay, the sun is fundamental for physical life, then we have to think, could it be also fundamental for spiritual life? And if we say yes, what is so fundamental that the sun is giving us for spiritual light? Not only frequencies that keep us alive, they keep us expanded, but also really those codes and information that inform evolution. So if the sun is doing that, it does it for every human being freely, of course, if we go out in the sun. But why did civilizations always build temples? Because they knew that if you put an antenna, then you create places where those information get more concentrated and then can be spread to humanity faster. This is the true function of temples. They were always to receive some information and spreading it. Even when you look at the documentaries of the Indian temples, they are now being read through, the key of super advanced extraterrestrial technologies. Yes, even if they were so, even more so, they were there to receive information, specific information. But they were antennas. They were not just built here to say, oh, look how advanced we are. They wouldn't make any sense. They were always built for creating connections between the human plane, the human life, humans, and something else. So our temples are there to be able to be an antenna to receive information for the new time that is coming, for the new age of Aquarius, if you like to talk about it in this way, whatever way we want to look at it, to support this line of awakening that is emerging in contemporaneous time with all the distraction that is going on. Because we are not seeing, okay, this is ending and this is beginning. We have the two lines together in the timeline of our planet now.
And those are the lines of destiny that you're referring to.
So when I was talking about the line of destiny, it's a little more technical, but I think it's interesting. So the sun sends information. the information that the sun sends is received by Earth, first of all, through what we call the synchronic lines. So these are lines of energy, information that literally inform life on Earth at every level. And because we're humans, we have the same energetic imprint. So again, we are a fractal system of Earth, also energetically. So the more we can clear this energetic system, the more we can be in tune with the information that is flowing through the synchronic lines of Earth.
And so modern, overstimulation, trauma, stress, burnout, all those things that I deal with a lot of people when they're coming to me, how do those things interfere with someone's destiny line energetically?
So the destiny line are kept active mostly by remembering that we are spiritual beings. So when those things that you are describing become so overwhelming that the person cannot hear their inner voice anymore, that they cannot take care of themselves in that way, then that's when that connection becomes a little less powerful. So in those cases, when people feel like that, it's so important to spend time in nature, because again, where is life more active and complex than in a forest? So go to a forest, be among trees, let these spiritual energies that are available to everyone replenish yours, and then you will be able to hear that voice again. So the disconnect with the lines of destiny happens when we are in burnout because we don't hear ourselves anymore.
And then how does the Selfica help restore that signal?
Well, we have a system here using the temples and some of the most complex selfic technology here that actually helps people to re-clear and realign the system. So it's like a complete reset. And then wherever you are, that helps you completely reconnect. Of course, if then you forgot you've done it and your free will says, I'm not interested, there's nothing that anyone can do, not even the most powerful of gods, in case people believe they exist, because we have free will. So in the end, we are responsible for how we live and how we relate to others, and ultimately the legacy that we leave to the world.
So have you ever, with those temples and the Selficas that are a complex part of the temples, have you ever seen someone enter those temples one way and then leave profoundly different?
Oh, many times. Yes, yes. I would say that
Give me an example.
the most sensational example is the judge of this area many years ago in 1992 when he discovered the temples that had been built in secret. He was convinced at the time that Damanhur was a cult, and he was super happy to have found these temples so he could end Damanhur and destroy the temples. So he
Ah,
entered with that attitude, and followed by some police. He came out crying and he said, I'm so sorry. I had no idea what you were doing. I'll do anything I can to help you. And so he seized the temples under his own authority, and he was the highest authority, so nobody could do anything, and gave the Damanhurians the permission to continue work inside the temples, because he said, art will save the temples, so make them more and more beautiful. And then the second thing he did was, he said, I'm not going to tell the press. I'm not going to tell anyone. You find a way when you're ready to tell the world about the temples. And that's when my life was hijacked, because that's when I was asked to come and take care of that aspect. And so what I started here as a sort of my own personal anthropological experiment of discovering who the Damanhurians were, why they did something so crazy, turned into a major shift in my life. And I'm still here so many years before. I mean, so many years after.
wow. Wow. That's and for you, were you totally open-minded when they brought you in, or were you a bit skeptical? Where were you at on that spectrum?
When they brought me in the first time, I was a little scared because I had been to Damanhur maybe a couple of times only. I didn't know the place well, and I had slept very little the night before I went dancing, and I came here like not completely lucid. And I arrived, and they showed to me this huge blueprint and said, in the last 16 years, we've been building temples inside a mountain. They're dedicated to humanity. And now the police came, the judge came. We need to tell the world we want you to help us. At the time, I was a quite successful PR in Italy. I was working with governments because I had experience with the United Nations and the European Parliament before. So I knew all the Italian journalists. They were important journalists. And so through a friend of mine, they knew of me and they called me. And at that time, I really felt my life would change. So I said, yeah, I'll help you, but I don't want to see the temples. I'm not coming. And they were shocked because they thought it was the greatest honor because no one ever saw those temples except for the 3 policemen and the Damanhurians. So in the end, I accepted. I said, okay, let's go see. The road that goes to the temples now, it's a big challenge for most Americans. They freak out because it's narrow, has lots of bends. On that day, that road was closed. So we had to take a tiny, tiny unpaved road in the middle of the forest to go up. And I found myself alone with 4 men that I had never seen before in my life, in a car, in a forest. This was before cell phones. And I was like, what if this really is a cult? What if I'm going to disappear into this forest? I mean, it was so hilarious. And so that was my beginning.
Wow. Talk about self-trust there, right?
Yeah, really. Yeah, I was like, okay, what's going on? And then I entered the temples and again, I had that very strange feeling of being somewhere that I knew, but I couldn't understand. And so then I decided to stay that weekend to try to understand why these people had built this, why they were living, so simply and just so dedicated all of their life and their time to building this thing. Why? And and then I'm here still now. Then I think I understood a little bit of the why.
Well, I want to bridge this back to Atlantis. Because there are those of us that feel a strong connection. There are others that just think, oh, you must be reading sci-fi. And then there's those that have stepped into it going, wow, that's wild that I'm now starting to get that. And what does Atlantis symbolize to you personally? Ancient civilization, a state of consciousness, a warning, a blueprint? What does it mean to you personally?
Probably all the things that you mentioned, because the more you study Atlantis or approach it, with different senses, the more complex it is. For me personally, I've done a lot of work in approaching Atlantis and looking at lives of people. So real people living now that asked to see what kind of life they had in Atlantis. And Atlantis was 35,000 years of a civilization, so there were many, many possibilities for us to have lifetimes. So what struck me in this particular work is the special emotional quality that the Atlanteans had. So they were not separate as we are. For them, their life was always a life of service to the collective. And in that service, they felt the maximum realization because in that service, they could express themselves fully. And the Atlanteans, they were really good at what they were doing and they really left an important legacy for the others, were actually in the golden time of Atlantis able to choose the next reincarnation. So there was a sense of being part of something that is not just one short lifetime, but actually it's so much greater. And what was the purpose for all of them was, again, to bring humans to a state of full realization in which we could be like what we call gods again, where the full human potential could be realized because they remember those times. And also the other important thing that is for me, Atlantis was founded by many different peoples that came from the stars. And they created a society that in the golden age again was an absolute harmonious whole. Everyone was different. There was no one state that was stronger than the other. It survived and thrived and became the center of spiritual power, not only human and physical, spiritual power in our galaxy because of the magic of connecting everyone by respecting diversity. So when people ask me or other Damanhurians, what was the government of Atlantis? Atlantis was martial and the Lemurians were soft. Well, no, it's not like that. They had all different kinds of governments. There were parts of Atlantis that were completely matriarchal. others that were more patriarchal, others that had councils, others that were absolutely always chose to be farmers, while other parts
Mm.
of Atlantis were super technological. So when you start to immerse yourself in this magic of this diversity, all welcomed and all united in one single voice for the betterment of humanity, it's very profound. It gives a lot of hope.
And do you think that hope is that the reason why so many people are being pulled into ancient wisdom and energy work and remembering right now?
Yeah, I can give you one more esoteric answer is that also from our perspective, this is the first time in history after Atlantis, so thousands of years, where all the Atlanteans are alive again. So we are all
Wow.
incarnated simultaneously to help this passage for humanity. And that's why we meet. This is why we have the internet that made this possible. And this is not just a Damanhurian idea. Recently, I had the pleasure of introducing to Damanhur a Mongolian shaman, and she told me that they have exactly the same myth or the same idea in their spirituality, that this is the time where we're all back together. And when we're meeting, many of us are meeting because it's, again, in this meeting, a recognition of each other, even though we don't say, oh, you're an Atlantean, I'm an Atlantean, but there's something that we recognize in each other. The quality of being recreates that collective fabric that we need to change the vibration that we use Selfica here to enhance. So I think we come full circle.
I love that, and I feel that, and there's times where you're like, I have some form of a connection or a knowing or a past life connection or something that just feels like home when surrounded by certain individuals that know that they're here to leave this world a better place than when they got here. And to me, I'm always like, great, I want to collect them. And I want to shift that a little bit into the idea of synchronicity. And what role do you think these synchronicities play in spiritual evolution?
Well, Selfica's first interaction with what we call reality is through synchronicity. Because so Selfica, especially the more complex ones, really work as funnels. So in our lives, we have lots and lots of possibilities. Some of them turn into probabilities, and some of them actually collapse the way and turn into matter, right? So they turn into
Wow.
events. So Selfica helps us filter the ones that are more important for our evolution. So I think the synchronicity as the law of the universe is something that we need to learn to recognize and resonate with in order to have a faster growth, faster evolution, faster understanding, and more consciousness. So I think it's absolutely fundamental to pay attention to that and not dismiss it. Oh, it was just a coincidence. It can be just a coincidence if we treat it like that. But if we treat it as a language of something more intelligent around us, and we accept that we're not the most intelligent human, and humans are not the most intelligent of all species, but we are part of,
Right.
again, of an ecosystem, then we say, oh, let's pay attention, because even a tree can give you a sign. And you say, oh, what is synchronicity? This apple just fell on my head.
I love it. I love it. And speaking of the speeding up and the faster, I'm going to hit you if you're open to it with a couple of rapid fire questions where you can
That's fine.
just read off your experience. I think this will be kind of fun. You up for it?
I'll try. I
All
hope
right,
I
so here we
understand
go.
them.
So just quick questions. I know you'll get them. You are a wealth of knowledge. So first one word that describes humanity right now.
Transforming
Ancient wisdom or modern neuroscience?
together.
Love that. Most underrated human capacity.
Empathy.
Love that. A practice that instantly creates coherence for you.
Smiling.
Totally in alignment. A place on earth with unusually powerful energy.
I should say
Ooh,
Damanhur, but
interesting.
I was too.
In addition to Damanhur, Greece. Okay, that's good. I'll have to do both in the same trip. What's more powerful, belief or intention?
They're the same thing, seen from a different angle.
And what about belief or attention?
Belief.
Do you
Because
think synchronicity? Yeah.
belief filters what you give attention to.
A book that changed your life.
100 Years of Solitude.
Who wrote that?
It's a novel. But
Okay.
it's extraordinary. It's just how you can create a world where everything is absolutely almost impossible, but it feels totally possible. It's the power of the human mind to believe into something created and make it real. And then an ending that when you read it, you say, oh, it's all the opposite of what I thought I was reading. And it's amazing.
Wow. Okay. Excellent. I will add it to my list. I love it. And one thing you think people should stop doing immediately?
Start or stop,
Stop doing immediately.
complain.
Amen to that one. Yes. Love it. What's one thing you think people should start doing immediately, daily?
Smiling more.
Yes. Yes. Laughter is the greatest medicine, unquestionably. And what do you think happens when we die?
Do we die?
Yeah. What do you think happens when we die?
I don't think we die. I think we transform. I think we shed this body, but who we are is not this.
Is eternal. Agree. Agree. And after having an NDE, definitely believe we're eternal. We're taking it all with us.
Which
And the
actually
most
makes
important.
sorry, I shouldn't
Oh, no, go
comment.
ahead.
This is a rapid fire question.
No.
Saying that the fact that we understand that actually we don't die, it's again a transformation. It gives us even more importance to how we live, how present we are in our life, because we take it with us. The essence of
And
what we live.
significance to
we
the
go with us.
now.
Exactly.
And then the most important ingredient for human evolution.
Love.
So I want to open this up to you asking me a question. Anything that's coming to you.
So what do you think that
Excuse me.
what do you think harmony is?
Excuse me. So to me, harmony is an awareness. Woo, got me. So to me, harmony is an awareness that we have chosen this life and this experience, and to experience the entire melting pot of experiences, emotions, everything, and to do it in beautiful symphony with everything else around us, which is only us. And when we can step into this form of harmony, we can find that union of all the emotions, the enjoyment, and really squeezing the most out of this life experience in a way that is just how you treat all things is how you treat yourself. And it all starts with how do you treat yourself? Start here, expand out from there. It's the be the change you want to see in the world.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I want to bring it on now into what does harmony mean to you?
I think harmony for me means beauty, that I think is one of the greatest values of life because it has the ability to transform everything. And when we cultivate beauty in our mind, in our thoughts, in our words, in the things around us, this has such an effect on everything that it helps us grow and evolve just because beauty has that power. So, there is a British poet that wrote that beauty is truth and truth is beauty. And this is all we get to know in this life. And it's really all we need to know. And I think this is harmony. I think this is the most beautiful expression of harmony that we can achieve in these bodies, in this life.
So beautiful. And I think that the Selfica can also help really connect us to that, awareness of harmony within us and harmony within our experience as we focus on each day, one day at a time, each moment, one moment at a time, coming back to the self. So for those who want to learn more about the Selficas, maybe get something that they can have to use to connect with as this spiritual technology, what's the best way to connect and learn more?
I think the best way would be to go on the website and take a look. I worked with the people of they make the Selfica for a long time to write descriptions. They're very comprehensive and I think very clear. There is also the possibility to book an appointment if people are interested in knowing more about the more complex things. people can write to me or come and have an experience, which is the best thing. So again, if you're interested in that, we have wonderful friends that organize really curated, beautiful, high energy, pure container visits to Damanhur. And I really hope, Kyle, that you come soon.
Yes, I am putting together more adventures, so I will have to put together a Damanhurian experience to bring some amazing humans out to get to experience it with me. Will be one of the new opportunities for those involved with Empowered Leader. And we'll also have all the links in the show notes, and we'll have all the discount codes, all those opportunities to connect with Damanhur for those who can't make it out there yet to tap in, learn, experience, and come home with their own Selfica. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on today. What an absolute gift. Amazing that modern technology can bridge two totally different worlds and also give us the ability to energetically connect and create harmony and provide great insight for those who are listening, who are feeling the call and feel the connection to both the ancient wisdom, the Atlantean times, and some of this incredible technology that can help us remember and embody who we are. Appreciate it. All right, my friend, if this episode sparked something in you, don't just wander off into the abyss of the internet. Hit subscribe so you can actually get the good stuff when it drops. And if you're feeling generous or mildly enlightened, leave some love in a review. It takes just 30 seconds, and somehow it feeds the algorithm gods so they know to send more people who really need it. Now, if you want to step deeper into my world, rapidharmony.com is where the real magic lives. Coaching, community, rituals, and a few surprises that are way better than just scrolling around another motivational reel and not doing anything about it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being you. And remember, your inner harmony isn't hiding. It's just waiting for you to pay attention. I'll see you on the next episode. Now go subscribe before you forget.